Hello, everyone. I am Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And today I have a guest who is a professional skateboarder. He has been inducted into the Freestyle Hall of Fame. He is a filmmaker who is in pre-production of his current film, Skate God. And I want to welcome to the show today, Alexander Garcia. Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm super pumped to be on here.
Thank
Got a lot
you.
to talk about.
Very good. Do you like Al or Alexander?
I prefer either or. I would say for this, Al, because this is skateboarding related. A lot of questions or so. Yeah, Al. That's my my skateboarding nickname, I guess you could say, Al Garcia.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Sorry, I just had something pop up on the screen, so I'm just making sure that everything's going well here with the broadcast. So I read during my research on you that you were inspired by Back to the Future. That's how you ended up skateboarding. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so wow, we're gonna go blast from the past.
Hey, Back to the Future.
Right. So, yes, I unearthed skateboarding in 1985 after I went to the Cineplex to go see the movie. My mom took me to see it. Her and I went, as we would normally do, go to the movies on Fridays after school. And I don't know. I mean, I was just mesmerized when I saw Michael J. Fox just blaze across the screen on a skateboard, versus the car that was, on fire, that whole DeLorean type thing. And I think what really impressed me the most about the skateboarding action sequential scenes was that it just showed really the true freedoms and liberties one has as a skater. So I really was just awe-inspired by that. I felt there was a sense of individualistic expression that I really, really sort of just gravitated towards. I've always been kind of the type of person who likes to do things that are a little bit, I don't want to say rare, but they're not really what everybody usually goes towards, like basketball or football.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like that. Yeah, that's
you're a bit more of a free spirit.
Exactly.
Like a bit more edgy with a free spirit, I guess.
Yeah.
So I also found out you did the 360 hard flip. That's what you're known for. What is that for the rest of us that aren't in skateboard world?
Yeah, it's going to come off sounding really foreign to people that don't skate. So it is the antithesis of a really common trick that all the kids do today, but wasn't very common in the 80s, and that's a 360 kickflip. So it flips the complete opposite direction that a 360 flip would flip. So instead of going backside, it goes front side. But your body stays with it. You don't do what is referred to as a body follow. You just stay completely stiff. It's all in your upper shoulders that you just kind of keep your body stiff so you can execute the trick. And it was just something that it was a lot of trial and error. The process was grueling, to say the least. I kept my neighbors up at night, banging the board in the garage.
I'm sure. How did you do, like with skateboarding? How many times do you have to do a trick before you sort of learned it?
Well, for that trick, I mean, it was so hard. I think towards the end, like maybe years later, I started to kind of get them wired. And even then, it's such an awkward trick. But typically for a basic standard trick, like let's say a 360 kickflip, I would say you start doing it within a week. You will have it like down pat within a month. You'll have it. And even then you may not, you land some sketchy or a little bit, just not, as we refer to as bolts on the bolts. You land completely on the bolts, each foot, on the bolts of a skateboard.
When you watched Back to the Future, did you tell your mom right away, that's what I want to do? I want to be a skateboarder. And did that also sort of like kick in the filmmaking part for you, or how did you end up filmmaking?
Yeah, absolutely. It really had a lot to do with Back to the Future and another film that I went to go see. I would say maybe a few years prior. And that was really inspiring. And yes, I said to my mom, oh, I want to get a skateboard. Right when we were leaving the theater, I said, oh, let's go. So she took me down to a local Kmart, not the Target, as everybody's so accustomed to these days. And I went and I actually bought the skateboard that even had the sticker that said "As Seen" in Back to the Future. So,
oh wow,
yeah, I just got on it, and I'm telling you, my neighbors, they loved us because I was keeping them all up all night, just skating in my backyard.
That's what that's what they say. You have to do your 10,000 hours.
Oh yes.
Where did the film? Yeah, definitely. Where did the filmmaking? Like, when did you do filmmaking and skateboarding at the same time, or did you sort of transition into that later?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds. I would say that when I ended up going to see, oh God, no, this is really going to give off my age, but when I went to go see Carrie, about the Stephen King horror film, we're talking the late, mid 70s. I was like this little, like just very sort of timid kid seeing, this girl with a bucket of blood at the prom come just pouring down, or to drive-in, because you got to remember it's all about the drive-ins in the 70s and 80s. And I was just this impressionable child. And I really just was like wowed by just all the lights, and you could just see how the shots, the score. So I was just really, taken aback by all that. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool, even as a kid. And then around 78, I went to go see another film. This is what sealed the deal. I went to go see Eyes of Laura Mars with Faye Dunaway, the great Faye Dunaway, Bonnie and Clyde, Warren Beatty. And it was a great film because it was really, I felt it was more of a subgenre type of film, and I believe they refer to it as a giallo, which is Dario Argento sort of coined that phrase, for horror. It's a completely different stylistic, and just aesthetically, it's different, and it really centered Eyes of Laura Mars on the fashion world, which I thought was really cool. I've always liked all that with it, cool type of hip things. And then it didn't hurt that my aunt was a fashion designer. So I was kind of brought into that world at a young age as well, just being around her, exposed to all these top designers and everything. So yeah, I thought it was just so cool. And after that, I was hooked. I started working on little short stories. I wrote my first children's short story about a week before I picked up a skateboard, which is really a funny story. In 1985, a week before I went to go see Back to the Future.
Okay. What was your short story about?
So it was about a little girl who really just kind of has a portal through her dreams. It's about a very imaginative girl, because I feel it's all about imagination, and that's why I love the film space so much, because it's all about inventiveness and imagination. So she's able to actually go to these different worlds through her dreams. She can enter these dreamscapes.
I see. And
it's actually, I have it in development right now. It's called Wibby's Dreams. It's been in development for a little while now. So
what's it called again? Sorry.
Wibby's Dreams. Oh yeah, Libbys. Wibby's Dreams.
Oh, Libby's Dreams. Yeah. What made you decide to pursue filmmaking more as a career?
Well, I was actually pursuing acting for a while. In the early stages, I was writing, but I really wanted to be more in front of the camera, because I grew up around all those action stars like Stallone and, all of Chuck Norris, Eddie Murphy, huge Beverly Hills Cop fan. And, I just thought, this is what I want to do. And I remember telling my mom, and I thought she'd say, wait a minute, you wanted to be a pro skateboarder, but now you want to be an actor? But she just really embraced the idea. And that was a great thing. My mom, she really just believed in me as much as I believed in myself. And she would always push me, to really follow my dreams more than anything. And so I did. I started auditioning, and I ended up getting on my first film set around 2002 for Grind, the skateboarding film that Tony Hawk co-produced. 900 films, and I'm standing on, there on set, and Adam Brody and all these other actors, and at the time, Bam Margera was really like all the rage in skateboarding. I don't know if you're familiar. Later became Rob Dyrdek, of course, because of MTV. And I just started thinking, this is really like, I could get used to this, just the attention and the crap food service. And it was more than just that, just the inner workings. I went ahead and I saw how everything, the shots are set up, blocking the scenes, so everything. So I was just really kind of taking notes. And then a couple of years later, I end up getting involved in the Lords of Dogtown. And I'm standing next to Heath Ledger. Yes, the great Heath Ledger, rest in peace. And he was just a coolest guy, just so down to earth, a huge loss, to the Hollywood scene. And I was just, oh boy, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was just so again, enthralled, and working with such a new cutting edge director, Catherine Hardwicke, who later moved on to direct Twilight. And she really just saw the passion and, the drive. And she said, what, I really want to keep you on this production throughout the entire duration. So I ended up becoming this featured extra, but ended up getting Taft-Hartley into SAG. So things started really happening after that. And I learned a lot being on
what are some of the things you learned? What are some of the things you learned from being on set and acting? It was really just advice?
About, for me, the discipline, which I already had coming off of skateboarding, this discipline and honing in on, really a certain scene and getting your dialogue down. And really, I looked at body language with the actors, all the idiosyncratic habits certain ones had that sort of would come alive, on screen. So, I mean, I think that I just learned that it really is an artistry, just as like skateboarding. And I think it's just, for me, I've always felt that skateboarding has ever been given. It's just, sort of respect, as far as it's not really looked upon as artistry, but it truly is. So I really feel that acting and skateboarding, all of those artistries go hand in hand.
What are some of the similarities between skateboarding and acting?
Well, again, I keep coming back to discipline. You're completely rehearsing, doing it, trying to practice a trick for hours on end until you knock it out of a park. And it's really in proximity, I feel, the overall disciplines and thing that acting and anything in theater or even in just feature, length films, it's all comes from the same, I feel, the same, melting pot.
Right. Did you always have positive reinforcement from your family? Did you ever was there ever a time where they're like, no, don't pursue skateboarding or don't pursue acting or filmmaking, or, because not everyone has that type of positivity.
Right. I felt there was a little disconnect with my grandfather because I was raised by my mom and my grandparents. They got divorced, my mom and my dad, at a very young age. So I was just kind of really trying to be that grandson that was more into sports. I did take up basketball. I love basketball. I took up track and even a taekwondo, martial arts. I studied, which I'm very happy I did, because that really helped me with skateboarding. Again, with just the concentration and discipline. So, I mean, I would just say in the beginning, my grandfather that felt that it was like, I don't really think you can really make a career, doing a skateboard.
How are you going to make money?
Right, exactly. That's always the first thing. It's always, and my mom really just wanted me to be happy because she could already see a disconnect in high school. I was always kind of a little bit of a loner. I always knew what I wanted to do, and I knew where I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to pursue professional skateboarding and later become, a filmmaker.
Okay, so you're always pretty focused on it, and that you were dedicated. That was you weren't wavering in the direction you wanted to go. Okay.
Yeah, no.
When I was doing the research, I found out that you are doing another movie called Skate God with, and actually you have some fellow Canadian actors in that. Sorry, I was born in Canada, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
So tell me a bit more about Skate God.
the Skate God. Oh my gosh, I've been chipping away at that project for quite some time, and it's going to go before the cameras this year. Really excited about that. So I went ahead and I conceived Skate God back in 2005, and it takes that long, so many years to get it right, because again, you're taking two different genres and kind of just meshing them together. You have like sci-fi elements in this, and you have even some horror elements, and then you have the skateboarding, the action element to it. And it really is, I feel it's like, probably the best skateboarding trick I've ever pulled off is that screenplay for Skate God, because it's just, I worked religiously on that for decades. Yes.
Right. With writing, was writing something that you had to like work at, or did that come naturally to you?
I have to say it came pretty natural. I have to say, I can't believe it myself. I mean, I look at scripts I've written years back, and I'm thinking, I can't believe I wrote that. And it's like, wow, it just, you get so in the zone. You get so immersed in these worlds you're creating that you almost forget where you're at. I mean, when you're so just deep in, your script, in your writing. And
probably that's where, sorry to interrupt you, but that's probably where, like with skateboarding and sports, because you have to be very focused and in the zone. So you're just sort of transferring that to writing. And I guess, if
that's
you
why
have
I feel
that,
it was a very natural fit. It was a natural fit for me, writing, screenwriting, because as I said, I penned a lot of early short stories before even my teen years.
And are those going to be made into a movie at all in the future?
Probably not. Probably just the Whippy's dreams one. Yeah, but you never know. Never say never, as the saying goes.
With skateboarding, did you have to have an agent and stuff? How does all that work? Like when you're touring around and doing all that type of stuff?
Well, I did. I had a sports agent. You get a sports agent early on. I had one, and then I had a talent agent later. But it was really about networking. It's really about just networking, being at the right place at the right time. As trite as that may come off sounding, it's all about timing. It's all about timing. And I say this to everybody when they ask me about, well, how did you do this, or how did you get involved in this? And it's really timing. That's why with skateboarding being so mega now with Olympics and everything, it's just now I'm going to get crap for saying this, but it's a full-fledged sport now. It really is a sport.
Well, no, it is a sport.
Yeah. And for the longest time, my brethren, they did not want to accept it. They were not, no, it's not a sport. No, it's more.
What did they want to call it then if it wasn't a sport?
Really just nothing. It was just kind of like a renegade thing. That's why skateboarders are kind of viewed more as renegades.
Okay, interesting. So there's a large contingent of skateboarders who don't want it to actually be a sport.
Yes, to a degree. I would say now they've come over a little bit more now because there's just so much. I mean, so many brands. I mean, we're talking about like just huge corporations are backing skateboarding now. Exactly. It's become this corporate. Sort of sports. Entity. It's like basketball. It's like all of these American pastimes. So I think that it's just now I think we're a little bit more accepting of the term sport.
You mentioned networking. Is networking important in filmmaking as well? Like overall, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It's really, as the saying goes, all about who you know, and it's really just being, sort of out there, putting yourself out there but at the same time, you don't want to come off too overly anxious, because they can see right through that. Some of these other producers, I was very fortunate to be mentored by a couple of Hollywood producers, and I learned, oh boy, they put me through a proverbial ringer on the daily, but I'm glad they did, because one of them said, the first thing he said is, you have talent, but I'm going to help you develop it. I'm going to help. And I was like, okay, and it really, I think as much as it takes talent, it takes really being able to handle. So I would say it's half mental and half talent. You have to be able to mentally be able to deal with things, deal with rejection, deal with people not liking your script, say you're not liking, really just not really gelling with you in general. I mean, it's just, it can really take its toll. But I think what really, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So how do you maneuver through that? Like, if someone doesn't like your script or that mentor that you had, because again, you worked with producer SHAUN REDICK from Get Out and cinematographer Peter Jensen. Like, when those type of people critique you, how do you take those notes and apply them to what you're doing, but still keep your true vision of what you wanted to do?
Again, you just said it. I take their notes. I go back and I look at my script and say, well, within reason, if it works, fine. I will go ahead and inject it in there. But if not, then I'm just going to, basically go to battle, with producers or my mentors. But in the end, I mean, it's all really for the good. Everybody wants the same thing. They want to make an amazing film at the end of the day. So, I mean, with SHAUN REDICK, it was great. I mean, SHAUN, he recognized early on that I did not really have sort of the quote unquote, that sort of analytical sort of numbers mindset, if that makes any sense. I was more of a creative guy, and that's what you find more in the writers now and directors. We're more of a creators. But it's great, because if we were good at everything, then we wouldn't need all these producers on these films, and
right.
So I mean,
well, everyone has their job, right?
So, yeah, everybody has their forte. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
What was the best piece of sage advice someone gave you in regards to your career, whether it was in skateboarding or in film, or in both, whichever?
The best advice was, and it's funny, this goes back to Heath Ledger. So on the set of Words of Dogtown, I asked him, because I was really young, new, wet behind the ears a little bit still, and I was a newbie. So I said, Heath, you have any advice for me? Because I couldn't believe I was actually talking to him. I had looked up to him before he was the Joker. I mean, he was in, 10 Things, I Hate About You. I mean, it's amazing. So the projects he's done. So I went ahead and asked him, do you have any advice? He goes, look out for yourself, because no one else is going to. That's what he said to me. And he's absolutely right. At the end of the day, you have your team, you have your managers, you have your agents, but everything falls on you. It really does. And it's up to you to make sure that all the pieces fall into place. They're not going to, because I know a lot of times I've talked to other colleagues, and they're like, yeah, well, my agent was supposed to do this and do that. And I go, well, did you go ahead and remind him? Because I mean, they have so many clients, they can't just go ahead and nurse, one client.
Hold your hand. Definitely. What do you believe are the necessary steps to become successful?
Honestly, I would say for me, it's always been imagination. I say inventiveness and creativity. Those are all, I feel, really just the nuts and bolts. Those are the kernels you need to be successful in any industry, not just the film industry, skateboarding, any industry. You have to really, I strongly believe it's all about creativity. I mean, that's how I have through a lot of all of this sort of, again, this rigmarole with all in the film industry, because it really, at the end of the day, it's about just staying positive and just taking flight with your creativity.
When you say creativity, you just mean like creating something artistic, or like I guess I'm trying to be more specific.
I mean, exactly. Just try to sort of create something, new. I feel that I have to work on something every week. I'm working on a new treatment for a script, an outline, or a scriptment. Right now I'm working on just something new. You just have to, again, it's all challenges, because you're diving into all these different worlds, right? And it's not just, you can really apply all, those principles and all of those traits to other industries as well. It's really about coming up with, a great, if you're working, say, in an ad, agency, you can come up with a great ad campaign, come up with, something, a slogan like that. I mean, that's why I've always had a lot of brands, skateboarding brands in the past, because I'm always just, it's never ending with me. I'm always creating.
What are you grateful for? What are you most, they say being grateful is really important. So I always like to ask that question of people.
I would say I'm grateful for the support that I received from my mom, my grandparents, my family, but mostly from my mom and grandparents, because they're the ones that really supported me. They're the ones that we did a contest back when I was young, and took me to a skateboard shop and bought me skateboards. So yes, I would say it's my family. I look at my mom as a role model, and I think any child should, because it really, that is the one that really, your mom is your biggest cheerleader, and always will be.
Very cool. Of course, working hard is really important, and, putting in your hours, but what would your suggestions be to someone, like, to work smarter maybe, or quicker? Do you have any tips on that?
I do. I would say you always want to do your due diligence. You always want to do, no matter how boring it is, research. You got to do your homework on things. I mean, and I'm one to talk, because I hated doing homework back in high school. But it really, but it's funny, because I've changed. I think now, if I would go back in time, Back to the Future, I probably would ace all my classes now in high school, because I've learned so much and I'm more disciplined, because again, it takes that too. I feel that it's a little bit of discipline, and a little, I think what really turned me off about high school was it was a little too much conformity there. I'm a non-conformist. I like to be, as I said, more of a renegade that comes from being a skateboarder.
I was good and bad in high school. I could do it, but then I also wanted to take off every now and then.
Oh yeah. I like to say I'm a self-taught kind of person, as I always say. But yes, I mean, it does all come down to hard work. It really does. I mean, like I said, I've been working on these two projects for close to over a decade now. I mean, The Cousin, which is a supernatural film that goes into production next month in Thailand. And the Skate God, that one has been, like I said, the hardest skating trick I've ever attempted.
Why is that the hardest trick?
I would say because when I started working on it, and when I conceptualized Skate God, skateboarding really was not accepted yet. It was still very underground. But again, I was under this disingenuity that skateboarding was just huge. I mean, when you're in it, you don't come out of that bubble. You're just in this bubble, and you just think, when skateboarding was on a downward spiral. I mean, I look back now when I turned professional in 1993, and even Tony Hawk has went on record and said that's the worst year for skateboarding. And I turned professional, in that year, in that era. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So you turned professional, and why was 1993 a bad year for skateboarding?
Well, I think it was really just about there was not a lot of money in skateboarding. There were not a lot of again brands as far as corporate sponsors. You didn't have any big contests. The contest that I turned pro at was it would be, I would say, equivalent to the X Games today and Street League. I don't know if you're familiar. And
I know the X Games, but not Street
League. X Games, yeah. So that didn't launch until like 6 years later, the X Games. So, but I think it really showed like all the skaters that were doing it for actual love and wanting to progress the quote unquote sport, because a lot of them just, they fell off. A lot of them just left skateboarding. So it just really, skateboarding almost reached decimation again, like it did in the early 80s. But luckily, the X Games came and saved the day, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater really is the one that I feel was able to make skateboarding a permanent mainstay.
What is, you mentioned earlier, I'm going to sort of switch from skateboarding. You mentioned earlier you have a film in Thailand.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So what's it called?
The Cousin. So The Cousin, it's had so many iterations. The working title has changed so much over the years, but right now let's say it's The Cousin. Yeah, so I think we're gonna stick with that title.
And what's it about? What's it about?
So it's about a young girl who is visiting her aunt and her cousin, her family, for summer, and they haven't seen her for a while. And she is harboring this dark secret. So she comes to this little Humboldt town there, and then I would say all hell starts to break loose right upon arrival, really. And it's really, I like to say it is, it flirts a little bit with Carrie, but it's more, I would say, Mean Girls, supernatural like Mean Girls. Yeah,
supernatural. Okay,
exactly. And we're having a huge resurgence now, right, with the Mean Girls musical.
Yes,
so
yes, definitely.
Again, goes back to timing. And the funny thing is, I for The Cousin back in 2008. Okay. At a time when Twilight was thrust upon, all of us. And so when I was shopping it around, talking studios, and everybody's like, well, because it centers on witchcraft, and everybody, of course, all into vampires because of Twilight. There was this big.
So we go back to the timing thing, right?
Exactly. Yes, yeah. So, and I said, well, you just wait. Vampire, the bite will wear off eventually. Right. And I said, and then everybody, witches will be flying back in on their broomsticks. And sure enough, the craft, came out, continuation, and that. And there's been a lot of films, it's centered on witchcraft again.
Right. With shopping your film around, let's talk a little bit about that. What is that experience like when you're going in to pitch your material? Any tips on that to someone who wants to do that?
Again, yes, I would say I've pitched to, you name it, from streamers to studios. I would say, again, make sure you've done your homework, because believe me, they have, and they know everything when you go in, and they give you, I mean, if you're lucky, they'll give you 5 minutes. I mean, I've done a pitch where I've sat down, I put the pitch deck on the table. They asked me like 2 questions. I go, okay. It's like a famous song, we'll be in touch. And you're like, basically, it's like a kiss of death. You be in touch, that line. So I would say make sure that you go in, you have all of your deck ready. It never hurts to have a script, and always have another project that you are ready. If they're not, you can tell. I can tell just by like the body language if they're just not.
They're not feeling it. Yeah, they don't. It's just not resonating with them.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
And even they look at it. You send it over, a week prior, and then again, you have to be ready for them to keep rescheduling. I mean, they're going to do that. I think it's just. I don't know. It's something that I think it's just they want to put you through. They want to put you. They want you to see how bad you want it. So you just have to keep rescheduling. Oh, okay, and and not to name names, but Amazon's notorious for that. Yeah. So I mean,
not to name any names, Amazon.
Right. Yeah. So.
Okay. Like, how many times has one meeting been rescheduled?
Oh God! I mean, I've had really. I mean, I would say like 50 times. Yeah.
What? Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah. And it's to the point where you're just like ready, and then they finally go ahead, and go and you go. Now everything's done. By via Zoom. You don't have to go in person anymore. And
exactly. So it's easy. It's just easy for them.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's very archaic now to go in person. And but like I said, there's been some projects, some really like big projects that have been made because people have pitched another project, but they go, oh, but I also have this.
Right.
And then sometimes they're more interested in that. I've had that happen before a couple of times.
Yeah, it's whatever's resonating with the person.
Exactly.
Maybe they
really
like
whatever. That the marketplace is hungry for.
Well, that too. Yeah. Right. You got to make money.
Oh yes.
You mentioned that your film is being shot in Thailand. Why Thailand? How did that happen?
Well, there's a huge tax incentive program in Thailand, and as you know, a lot of independent financiers now, they don't want to finance independent films unless they have tax credits. They want what is referred to as an MG, a minimum guarantee from distributors. Boy, now we're going to get into all this boring talk, but
no, that's what part of the show's about, because I want to give
bore the audience, but it's educational, I guess, especially if you want to get it into the film industry. So it really comes down to tax, incentives, and California, we have them down here, but at the same time, I feel that the studios always have such they already have them ready to go. Then the independent films are ones to suffer, which I think it should be the opposite, because we're the ones that really don't have, all of the finances that studios have, or, Brad Pitt to make his, independent film. So it really, I feel that needs to change in Hollywood. I think that's something that I'm really hoping does change.
How can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like, how so? What changes would you like to see?
It comes down to really just about having a film, like we said, that there's a want and need in the marketplace. Horror, we refer to as investors as a quick flip. It's like flipping a house, because you see so much horror out there. Like on the daily, you'll see an announcement every day on horror. How do you individuate your project from the other? I mean, from someone else's project, there's no way you really can do that. So if you have a high concept project, such as Skate God, but even then, sometimes the investor doesn't want to be the guinea pig investor because it's too it's something that's a risk, and all they really care about is the ROI, the return, on investment.
On investment.
So I mean, you just need to go ahead and get your film, get it cast, then start applying for tax credits. I mean, the only way you're going to be able nowadays to get your movie made is if you have a rich uncle. I mean, truthfully, rich family member. It's like become nearly impossible. You really have to. And that's why people are leaving, California, and they're going to Thailand, we're going to, Atlanta, all of these states, because much more coming with
could you
repeat
that
credits.
Last little bit for me? You sort of broke up a little bit.
Sure. So you have all of these just tax credit states. That's why everybody's leaving California and going to make their movie somewhere else, like Atlanta, like Vancouver. I mean, there's a lot of these opportunities, these tax credit opportunities. do it. But it really comes down to a lot when you're making a movie. It really, even though they say that it's not contingent on cast, but you do have to put, some names in your film, especially if you're a new filmmaker, because they see that already as a risk.
Right. When it comes to you picking your projects, it sounds like you sort of develop most of your projects, but
yes.
When you decide to commit to something, what factors sort of do you look for?
I look at the premise. That's the first thing. What is it about? Again, is this something that I feel that the audience will resonate with? If it's something for me, I'm always getting hit up by filmmakers that want me to produce their films or that, and I really just kind of look at the concept, the premise. If they have any attachments, that's always attractive. That never hurts if they have someone attached, an actor already to it. But it comes down to the premise. I've never really been into period pieces, even though I'm not going to go and say I never will do a period piece, but it's something that I'm not attracted to. If it's horror or a subgenre, something that's kind of like a hybridity horror, but it's more, it's got more supernatural elements. And I look at that, I'm a big rom-com, also a fan of that genre. And I like pretty much all the genres except period pieces. I'm not, I was never a tourist guy. Never. Yeah. I guess that's where a skater mentality comes out.
So no War and Peace for you.
Yeah, no dangerously liaisons. No dangerously liaisons for me. No.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So the show is called Shout Out with Sage. So I wanted to know, is there anyone that has been really pivotal in your career or helped you, slapped you, pushed you, motivated you? Is there anyone you'd love to give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I would say again, my mom, my grandparents, unfortunately not here anymore. Rest in peace. They really pushed me. And then my early mentors, Lou Race he's been a great mentor to me, and he's worked with Spielberg. He is really so knowledgeable and has so much experience, and he's always a consultant on all of my projects. And I would say Lou Race, also William Clevenger, of course. Will.
Yes. Well, actually, we need to give a shout out to Will, both of us, because we wouldn't be here today without Will.
Right?
So
Will.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, he's amazing, and the Big Picture Collective. Shout out to the Big Picture Collective, my fam, and I think that my girlfriend Joanna Guizada. Let's thank her, for always pushing me, as well. And I think that everything really, again, it comes from within. It's all internalized. It's you really make things happen for yourself. You can have people helping you and really guiding you, but it's always going to come down to just one person that really gets the job done. And I always lean overs, if I need,
Sorry,
something, especially
you're breaking. Yeah, you're breaking up again. Yeah. Can you sort of repeat that a little bit for me?
Yeah. So I all on the shoulders of Lou Race. He's great mentor. And like I said, he's worked with the great Spielberg and some of the other great, filmmakers of our time.
Great. Is there anyone else you'd love to give a shout out to, or how do we find you on social media before we go and end this fabulous episode?
Yeah, I have had a blast. Yes, you can find me on my IG handle is Al_Garcia_laser. That's LAZER. And it's really taken from a trick that I'm known for doing, a laser flip. So it's a trick that I.
So what's so now that you mentioned that, what's the laser flip about?
So the laser flip has to do with your heel, where the 360 hard flip is more with your kick flip. So more, not with the ball of your foot, your toe, more a kick flip. So this is done with your heel, and it's called a laser flip. Yeah. So I'm known for really perfecting that one too. I didn't invent it. Even though people always say that I did. No, I did not. But I think that I perfected it, especially on flat ground. I will say that.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we got your Instagram. Anywhere else we can find you?
Yeah, so I have a really cool skateboarding company that I launched right before the pandemic hit, and that's Everyone Skateboard Co. And what it is, it's really just kind of a love letter to all the great like 80s pop culture, and from cinema to we're working with some amazing brands like Hasbro. We're doing some stuff with Hasbro. We worked with Archie Comics, Riverdale.
Okay,
and
yes.
Yeah, and Tootsie Roll and Popeye. So it's just I used to be a real avid like collector, like toy collector. So it's like now I'm just taking a lot of those characters and putting them on skateboards. So we're going to be immortalized on all these skateboarding decks. And it's great because there's so many now fans of skateboards, wall hangers. They buy them, hang them on the wall. I mean, Comic-Con, they have a whole booth now at Comic-Con where they sell skateboards.
Actually, I went over to a friend. Yeah, I went over to a friend's house the other day, and yeah, like he had skateboards. Like that was, instead of paintings, he had skateboards. Yeah.
That's the trending. Yeah, quite a lot now. I mean, so we're working on some big things. Like I said, we're working with Hasbro now. That's exciting.
And what exactly are you working on there? Can you talk about it?
I can talk a little bit about it. Sure. No, I can. Yeah, I mean, that's fun. By the time, I can talk a little bit. So we're doing G.I. Joe for skateboards. We're doing G.I. Joe and Transformers, because Transformers, it's their 40-year anniversary. So 40 years this year. Yeah, they started in 1984. They launched Transformers. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, we have some really cool other two IPs that we've licensed that we're going to be releasing for the holidays.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Al. It was great talking to you and getting your
likewise
tips and advice. And have a great day. And thanks everyone for joining us. And we will see you Wednesdays at 4. Shout out with Sage on StreamInn Hub Radio.
All right.
And thanks everyone. Thanks so much.